Hello students, welcome back to my lectures of class 11 physics. We are studying our chapter motion in a plane. Here we have another part of the chapter that is called as the projectile motion. So first of all, what this projectile motion is? Here we have the word projectile. This word is originated from the word projected. और प्रोजेक्टेड का मतलब होता है किसी भी एक पर्टिकुलर एंगल पर. यहाँ पर क्या होगा कि हम जो भी मोशन है वो एक एंगल पर होगा along with the horizontal. Okay, so here this projectile motion, that is the motion of an object that is making an angle theta with the horizontal. So here first of all we will see what is this projectile. Okay, so here this projectile is an object that is in flight after being thrown or projected. मतलब जिस object को हम air में फेंक रहे हैं, that object is called as the projectile, और उस projectile का जो भी motion होगा that is called as the projectile motion. So the motion of that projectile is called as projectile motion. Okay, now in this projectile motion the object is allowed to move under the action of gravity alone. It means we are throwing any object in the air. So after it is being projected, that object will move under the effect of gravity only. So this is one of the most important factor in this motion, that the object will move under the effect of only gravity. Okay, and it is derived from the word projected, as it is projected at some angle with the horizontal. We are throwing that object by making some angle with the horizontal. Now here, based on that angle, we have two different types of motion. The first one is the projectile given horizontal projection, and second is the projectile given angular projection. Now in this, the projectile given horizontal projection, suppose you are on the top of a building and you are throwing any object in the forward direction and that moves to the ground. And in that case, you are making an angle of 0 degree with the horizontal. As you can see here, you are standing at this point and you are throwing the object in a straight direction with some velocity u, and then object moves on the ground. So such kind of motion is the horizontal projection. We have another type of projectile motion, that is the projectile given angular projection. Means you are standing on the ground and you are throwing any stone in the forward direction making some angle with the horizontal. यहाँ पर इस तरह का motion है. You are standing here and you are throwing the object in the upward direction, and here it is making an angle of theta with the horizontal. Such kind of motion is called as the projectile given angular projection. So here right now in this lecture we will study some points related to these two types of motion. Now the first one is the projectile given horizontal projection. In this, suppose you are standing at this particular point and you are throwing any object in the straight forward direction and the object moves towards the ground. Such kind of motion is called as projectile motion given horizontal projection. और यहाँ पर जो एंगल की हम बात करते हैं वो horizontal के साथ जो एंगल है वो कितना हो गया? That will be equals to 0 degree, or you can say with the vertical that angle is of 90 degree. Okay, now here we have to consider this particular point O, that is called as the origin, या हम उसको origin यहाँ पर मान सकते हैं. And if we are considering this to be origin, we have this x-axis and y-axis. Now here this can be considered as the fourth quadrant, but here this OY we have to consider it to be positive for the measurement of the position. Although you can see here it is the fourth quadrant, but यहाँ पर हम ये जो y axis है इसको हम positively consider करेंगे. Here O is the origin and OY is the positive axis for position measurement. Okay, now this velocity is given along the OX, that is the U. मतलब यहाँ पर जो भी velocity हम इस projectile को देंगे that is along the X direction, and that is along OX, and that velocity is U. Now whenever we are throwing it, this object will move under the effect of two different velocities, and both the velocities will be perpendicular to each other. Object moves under the effect of two velocities and both are perpendicular to each other, and out of them one is the horizontal velocity and second one is the vertical velocity. अब यहाँ पर हम देखते हैं, for example, at any point this object reaches at this point P, और यहाँ पर point P को हम मान लेते हैं x and y, these are the coordinates of the point P. अब यहाँ पर this distance, that is the y along the y-axis, and this one is the x along the x-axis. Okay, now at this particular point we have two different velocities. The first one is in the horizontal direction and one will be along the vertical direction, and there will be resultant of both of them that will be in the tangential direction to that of motion. Okay, so here this velocity we are considering to be Vx and this we are considering to be Vy. So here this velocity along the x-axis, that is Vx, that will be always u. Because the velocity which we have given in the horizontal direction, that will always remains constant throughout the motion. So this horizontal velocity that remains constant, that is the velocity with which we have thrown the object, and that is along the x-axis. तो x-axis के along जो velocity रहेगी वो हमेशा क्या रहेगी यहाँ पर, जिस velocity से उस object को आपने आगे throw किया है, and that will be only u, and that will always remains constant. और आप ये भी कह सकते हो कि इस वेलोसिटी की वजह से यहाँ पर ऑब्जेक्ट के अंदर कोई भी एक्सेलरेशन नहीं आएगा. मींस हियर यू कैन से दिस एक्सेलरेशन अलोंग एक्स एक्सिस दैट विल बी इक्वल्स टू 0. इफ वेलोसिटी इज कांस्टेंट देन एक्सेलरेशन विल बी इक्वल्स टू 0. Here we have another velocity that is Vy. This is the vertical velocity. Now this vertical velocity that is increases due to the gravity. अब हमने यहाँ पर पढ़ा था कि जो projectile motion है, that is the motion in which the object moves under the effect of gravity alone. तो यहाँ पर जो component है velocity का, which is because of the gravity, that is Vy. And as the object is moving towards the ground, then this component that increases because the gravity also increases when the object is moving towards the ground, and that acceleration due to gravity is positive. So यहाँ पर जो Vy है that increases, and that is because of the gravity. So here we have two important points, that the horizontal velocity that remains constant, but the vertical velocity that changes or that increases because of the gravity. Now here we have the second type of projectile motion, that is the projectile given angular projection. Now here, suppose if we are standing at this point, this O is the origin, and we are throwing the object in the upward direction such that it makes an angle of theta with the horizontal, and its initial velocity is u. So u is the velocity of the object, theta is the angle with the horizontal. अब यहाँ पर हमारे पास जो velocity है, it's a vector quantity, and we have the theta with the horizontal axis. So we can resolve this u along two different axes. Here it will be u cos theta, and here it will be u sin theta. Okay, so this u cos theta that will be along the x-axis, that is along this x-axis ox, and it is along oy, it will be u sin theta. Now this u cos theta, we can consider this is the velocity along the x-axis, that is vx, and similarly we can consider this to be along y-axis, that is vy. Now here we have the velocity along the two different axes, and they both velocities will be perpendicular to each other. So we are considering that at any point P, we have the coordinates x and y, and here the velocities will be along two different axes. Here it will be vx, and here it will be vy, and here it will be the resultant with the tangent of this motion. Okay, now here we have this velocity along x-axis, and along the x-axis the velocity always remains constant. जिस velocity से हमने उसको throw किया है, उसका जो भी horizontal component रहेगा वो हमेशा क्या रहेगा, constant रहेगा, because we don't have any other forces other than the force with which we have thrown it in the forward direction. इसलिए यहाँ पर जो velocity है forward direction वो क्या रहेगी, it will be always constant. So this horizontal component of the velocity that always remains constant. So this Vx is constant. Now what about Vy? This Vy, that is the vertical component of the velocity, and that component changes because of the gravity. अब यहाँ से from O to point H, this H is the point of maximum height where the object can reach. So before the H point के पहले जो भी हमारे पास vertical component होगा velocity का वो decrease होगा. क्यों? Because the object is moving in the upward direction, but the gravity is acting along the downward direction. So that component will decrease because of the action of the gravity in the opposite direction. So here this velocity vertical component, this decreases up to point H. लेकिन H point के बाद क्या होगा? वो जो component रहेगा that will be in the downward direction. Okay, because the object is moving in the downward direction, and the gravity that also acts in the downward direction. So in that case, that vertical component increases. So it increases after H. But what about at point H? At point H, the vertical velocity that will be in the perpendicular upward direction, and the gravity that will be acting in the exactly downward direction. So both of them will balance each other, and at this point, the resultant velocity of that object will be equals to 0. वहाँ पर resultant velocity क्या हो जाती है, वो 0 हो जाएगी. So from 0 to H, this velocity decreases. From H to this final point, the velocity increases, and at point H the velocity is 0. That is because of the action of the gravity on that projectile. So this is all about the projectile given horizontal projection and projectile given angular projection. In the next video, we will see about the projectile given horizontal projection in detail.